So one of the things that I find interesting is that we look at the way that things are right now in terms of something being successful and something not being successful, and then we infer based on those observed performances that they actually should mean something in terms of what happened in the past. But in my experience, and there's a little bit of research that sort of bears this. Um, it's hard to sort of figure out why things happen and why something is more successful than something else. Um, and it might not necessarily be that there is a capability or a skill set or something that is leading to the underlying, um, performance of something actually doing well. Um, and, that's the thing that I kind of struggle with is when we look at something, and we all kind of infer this, right? We infer it's a really simple inference, just to simply say this is the way that the world is based on what the performance is, right? So we might think that there is, um, you know, Google is somehow much better, the team is somehow much better, and everybody else. But what you're forgetting about is that there's all this sort of compounding that happens over the years that makes it impossible to compete. It makes it very difficult to compete. So a slight change early on might lead to some sort of minor advantage, and then that leads to a little bit better advantage, and it leads to a little better advantage. And just over time, it sort of accumulates. We have to take a step back, and we have to sort of suggest or believe that it's not always the case that what you see, the sort of outcomes that you see, is actually indicative of anything other than maybe chance outcomes or just the way that things have been structured, um, in sort of a larger broader way. And it's not necessarily to do with any particular individual manager or organization that results in the performance that we might actually see, um, in terms of what we're seeing. And you just have to be a little bit skeptical in what you see and what you observe, um, and sort of really just take a step back and realize that there's there might not necessarily be any lessons learned. There might not be, uh, anything that we could sort of say that the reason why somebody is successful is because of the things that they actually have done. Like, there's just a lot of things that we should just be doubtful of, and instead of taking for granted that what you observe right now in terms of the world around you is actually indicative of something bigger. And rather, what we should be more careful about is look at the long term, you know, just what it means to repeat at something, or look at sort of, um, the compounding of things that happen. And that's a little bit different of a message than looking at what's instant in terms of the performance right now and what is sort of reflecting on reality. Instead, I'm suggesting is like, let's look at just long run impacts over time and what happens over time in terms of, uh, the accumulation of performance. And those are really different ways to understand the world. Um, so I'll always assume that the world is changing and there's not like a one best way of doing things. And I'll always assume that, um, it can, um, small changes that are random and that are outside somebody's control can actually make a really big difference in um, what will result in the long run. Anyways, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.